just randomly picked some of these pictures and.
And unfortunately, there's like 20 envelopes or 30 envelopes over here, and we're gonna get through 2 or 3 today.
Yeah. Where are we at time-wise?
Oh, just whatever time you got.
Yeah, I can keep going.
Yeah. This is as good as it gets, so I got as long as you do.
Yeah. All right, this is an interesting bred dog. This dog is off of Pedro to Young Cowgirl. Young Cowgirl was off of Snooty and Cowgirl, and Cowgirl was the last pup produced by Midnight Cowboy.
Yeah, you can just see the cowboy stuff there. Makes you want a Bushwick Bill dog right now.
Yeah, it does. It really does. I was fortunate whenever I bought Atlas Brewers yard to get the Cowgirl bitch. Again, I think it was Miss Dolomite that he took down to Florida and bred to Baker Davis's champion Midnight Cowboy. And she had one puppy and it was tiny. And Brewer's wife...
Who is Atlas Brewer for people that don't know?
Well, he's the guy...
And what was left on his yard when you bought it?
Grand Champion Spike. Well, he wasn't Grand Champion then. It was Champion Spike. Cowgirl. A bunch of Mims Snooty dogs. Snooty Hannah Patch dogs. Which, honestly, I didn't move forward with any of those. Smeller. The Smeller dog was an interesting story. Smeller was a littermate brother to Champion Thor off of Snooty and Miss Pool Hall Red. So there were 2 dogs in that litter. I can take off on this tangent. I think
Please do.
I can say a little more about this
Yep.
this dog off of Young Cowgirl, but I'll get back to that. So there was 2 dogs. The breeding was actually done by Ronnie Hyde. I guess some collusion of Kimsey Wood and Ronnie Hyde. And or maybe it was done by Brewer after he got Snooty. Maybe Ronnie Hyde brought Miss Pool Hall Red up and bred to Snooty whenever Brewer had him. But, at any rate, Brewer had one of the dogs, a brindle dog named Smeller. There was a rumor that went around that Smeller was brindle because Hyde couldn't decide who to breed to Miss Pool Hall Red. He was torn between Snooty and Satch, and that he had to only look like he got one of each. He got Thor off of Snooty and he got Smeller off of Satch, and but he had to breed them. People weren't understanding about that kind of thing back in those days when they weren't doing DNA tests, so he had to register both as being off Snooty. But I was fine with Smeller being off of Satch if that's what he was. I don't know that he was, but anyway, Brewer turned out to be I don't know how to say it other than he's a piece of shit. You know, and the reason I say that,
If you don't know any other way to say it, then
I've got a pretty good selection of words at my disposal.
Yeah.
But there were 2 things that he did that caused me to put him in that category, and I don't like using these sessions doing hit jobs on people's personalities. That's not what I'm here for. But you know, the 2 things that happened. One, I had heard that Smeller, whenever I bought Brewer's Yard, I paid an extra amount for Smeller, $2,000 extra for Smeller. And but I had the understanding with him based on Smeller having missed a couple of breeds, that if Smeller didn't produce at least 1 live litter for me, that I would bring him back and get my money back for him. That was understood. Well, Brewer contacted me and told me that they were having a cookout one day, and that I was invited. They'd really like for me to come. Well, it was a 90-something mile drive for a cookout. I decided to go. I was honored that the dog man down there wanted me there. So I go down there, and hell, there wasn't but 2 other people there besides me.
That had given me pause.
Like, what's up with this? And the food really wasn't that good.
You get your jab ready.
Yeah. So I got back home and I had 2 dogs missing. Smell was one of them. So it didn't take a brain surgeon to figure out what had happened. They'd get me out of there so he could send one of his little thugs up there to steal Smeller so he wouldn't have to give me my money back. While he was there, he took a female that I had off Snooty named Shebo. I couldn't prove anything. I could prove to my own satisfaction. And so I just put a check in his box after that. Okay, this is who he is and what he is.
We talked about gut feelings in the last episode.
Yeah.
Your gut will tell you a lot.
It speaks to a lot of truth. So then, probably a year after that, I was at an event down near him that he wasn't able to attend, that he wanted to attend, and he was jealous of everybody else that attended. And let's just say that event was raided, and in the subsequent proceedings, it was revealed that he was the one who submitted the information. So he alerted the folks that didn't like what was going on, and he was responsible for it. So those 2 things added together add up to a piece of shit. You know?
Yeah. And what do you think the breakdown is in terms of pieces of shits and good, honorable dog men?
You know, there's all shades of gray. I think there's a lot of people that if they had to choose between spending time away from their family or putting at jeopardy somebody they didn't like to start with, it becomes a no-brainer for them. It's not something that we don't make exceptions for our dogs. They're either honest or they're not. It can strongly be argued that the same should hold true for dog men. If dog men are worthy of owning high caliber dogs, then they gotta be held something approximating the same standards. So it's a beautiful thing whenever there is undoubtedly gameness of the highest order present. That's a beautiful thing that should be honored without reservation. But in reality, I think that there's a whole lot of rationalizing and justifying that goes on. And probably in terms of just absolute gameness in dog men, 10% maybe.
Who are 3 that you...
Well, some of them don't like to have their names called.
Well, that's true.
In public. There's
Yeah.
one that I would go to immediately.
Yeah.
The last time I mentioned his name on one of these podcasts, he got all pissy about it.
Big Black Eli dog? Florida? I can't imagine him being upset.
No.
He was game.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, he was
Bobby
at
Peru.
Bobby Peru's daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was absolutely game. Hey, James, my hat's off to you, brother. The guy I'm talking about is from Alabama, and I hope that ain't saying too much.
Anyhow,
Yeah.
we can...
There's not, I might have to, thank goodness a lot of these guys don't get put in the position where they have to choose. And they're able to go through life with the at least the fantasy that they're gaining.
Yeah.
You know, it all comes down to who it's for. A lot of it comes down to who it's for.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Family. I don't think twice when I jumped in a wood chipper.
Yeah.
Make it fly. You know what to me. I guess if one involves himself with a fraternity where it's clearly implicitly understood that by virtue of participating, you don't really get to pick and choose who you save and who you let slide. There's no justification for being the weak link in the chain.
Yeah.
If you want to uphold the value of gameness, you just got to bite the bullet.
I don't know why I always think about death in these situations, and I always feel like I'm gonna have like a last thought that goes through my head when I die.
That's
I just don't want that to ever be there.
That's probably that punctuation mark on their life, that last thought, that last look in their eyes. That's as good a grade as you'll ever be able to get put on a man's life. The fella who built the bomb for Oklahoma City, what is his name?
Timothy McVey.
McVey. You know, the fact that those kids got burnt alive down in Waco, Texas, he was so hurt to his core that he couldn't live with that, knowing that those kids were burned alive by alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, ATF. And that's why he did what he did. He wasn't a deranged murderer. He wasn't. He was hurt so bad by that being able to do that. He felt there had to be justice done. He is guilty of piss poor recon, not knowing that there was a nursery in that building.
Yeah.
He's guilty of not knowing that, because then he only did what the other side did. But whenever they executed him, they had a camera on his face, and they showed that. They broadcast that view on TV of his face and his eyes. And I tell you, I looked with great interest in that man's face and in his eyes as he transitioned. Motherfucker didn't blink. Didn't blink, not once. Not one grimace, not one second of hesitation. He just went to the other side, eyes wide open. So, no, that doesn't, that just tells me that he had what it takes as a man to wager everything to support his belief system. It's not me saying that everything that he did was correct. That's not saying that his belief system was without flaw. There's a lot of mistakes made on both sides in those events. But when it comes to pointing out a human being, I feel totally confident that he was just that.
Where do you think that comes from in humans? I mean, it seems like we think that it comes from breedings and genetics and dogs, but where do you think it comes from in humans? Same thing, or?
I think so. I think, in the tens of thousands of years of evolution, everybody couldn't run away to save themselves. There had to be a few bad apex dudes that looked the devil in the eye and didn't blink. In order for tribes and communities to survive, there had to be somebody that says it stops here. It stops right here. I'm going to jump off this rock ledge onto your big ass, and whoever lives, lives. And I think there's a genetic basis for it. I think that genetic basis is fine-tuned by experience. If you have a lot of experiences that shape your behavior and your mindset into that of a gambler, and there are anybody that's studied behavior modification and reinforcement schedules knows that there are reinforcement schedules that will make a behavior persevere, keep it from being extinguished, will keep you coming forward. And so
is the nature nurture.
It is, but I'm thinking that I'm thinking 90% of it's genetic, because there's some guys you couldn't train them to try to win a hot dog eating contest. They don't have enough drive about them. But then I think it's like, I think in humans it's like it is with dogs. It's 90% genetic, and then you add the right experiences to it, and you got a true killer.
There seems to be some fairness in that too. Like, if like a history of genes and people have suffered, they should be able to manage a little bit better than the rest.
Yeah, they should get.
And dogs as well. I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah. Nietzsche talked about the man of the future was a man who would learn how to exceed himself. And wherever that trend started, there being somebody or some people in the group that, again, would look the devil in the eye and not blink, just lay it all on the line and say, what the hell, I'm tired of being scared, tired of being timid, and this is where I die, this is where I die. That's I think they're finding more and more that behavioral patterns can transition into genetics. That's being learned more and more. And what better reward for the brave man than to be able to produce brave children.
Heck yeah. And it gives you something to aspire to as well.
Yeah, it knows that it's not just all about what's happening in this moment. It's about what happens in this moment, and also what your progeny become.
You're not just the holder of the genetics. Like, you can progress them as well in short periods of time, even in your own life.
I never really thought of it as being in terms of reward, but you're right, that's exactly what it is. It's the ultimate reward for exceeding yourself, like Nietzsche said.
We better get back to some pictures of dogs and talking about dogs for
Yeah, a lot of this stuff works its way back to.
I mean, it does all relate to them, for sure.
Yeah.
Same group of people gets brought together. Whatever that 10% is the 10% that understands.
Yeah. What they say, if you know, you know.
Yeah, that's the hashtag. It. If you know, you know. But they'll say that whether they do or don't.
There's a whole lot of people that don't know.
That's their title.
That's a mantra. Hoping that somehow they'll make them know. Hand me that stack over there if you would. There's a dog there on top I'd like to talk about a little bit. This is double grand champion Booger. He was bred by Steve Pennington from somewhere in Tennessee. I want to say around Murfreesboro. Steve was a real dog man. He loved his dogs. He was, he was an athletically built guy, probably 5'11", probably 190 pounds, something like that. But he had long red hair. I'm talking shoulder length or longer than shoulder length red hair. And really made a name for himself. He originally brought a female over here that had some Eli blood, but it's kind of a mixed bred female. I believe he called her Godmama. And he first bred her to my Amos dog, and he got a dog out of that he called Amos Son. It's like Amos' son. And he was real happy with that dog. And he was not one to fudge. He was not one to pretend. He understood the idea that there's no bigger fool than the man who fools himself. So he dealt straight with himself and with the dogs, and that was a really good dog. He also got a daughter, Snake and Missy, from me. That was an outstanding bitch. Actually, she collected, I think, 1 or 2 forfeits off Tornado. I know what a badass Tornado was. Tornado would punch holes through the lungs of a hog. Okay, so, Steve is fond of telling the story about how he collected forfeits. I wondered to myself at the time, does he know how fortunate he was that he collected those forfeits? I'm sure the bitch was good.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember her name. She was Littermate's sister to Ronnie, who was the mother of Champion Mechanic.
People can look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Very fortunate.
pardon?
Yeah, very fortunate.
Yeah. So you've shown everybody this picture.
Yes.
Booger. Booger was a very, very intelligent, very systematic, very skilled, intelligent animal, and he prevailed over the hog 11 times. And just a fine example of a dog that I wish that I had been able to incorporate more of that blood back into my yard. The reason that I didn't was I had a top tier dog man send me a bitch. He gave me the bitch, and she was well bred. And it turned out she had babesia, and he didn't know that. I'm not even going to name him because it sounds like I'm trying to hold him accountable or down him, and he's a great guy, it really is. But anyway, I had her chained aside of him, and somehow it passed from her to him. And at that time, they didn't have the medicines that they have now for babesia, and he died from that before I could get Bob second. So,
What was behind him?
well, it was the Snake Missy bitch on the one hand, and my son Snooty Amos, bred to Godmama. Godmama having several bloodlines in her, but some of it was Eli blood. And I wouldn't have grabbed that dog for its pedigree. I wouldn't have, because it's just so much different. I like order.
Yeah.
I like families, and every now and then you get one that all the numbers come up, and he was one of them. He went into high caliber competition and just systematically dismantled, and 11 times.